Hello, guys. David Vose here on a hot, sweltery day here in paradise with occasional clouds that seem to do well at blocking out the sun and cooling things down for maybe about 5 minutes out of every 20. So that makes it better. But it's not really that hot. It's just that I don't like a lot of heat. I don't know what the temperature is. It's in the 80s probably. Hope you're having a wonderful day where you're at. Friends, I just saw an interview, a Pierce Morgan interview with Roseanne Barr. We did a video about Roseanne Barr a couple, 3 weeks ago or something, where she made a statement about the individuals over there south of Lebanon in the aforementioned area that we today do not call Palestine. And she said that a number of these individuals, what do they say, 6 million? That's all we'll say, did not actually have the occurrence that we were led to believe they had. But she thought that maybe they ought to. Now, I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in avenging anyone. And I believe that all peoples of the world are all from one man named Adam. And we're all brothers and sisters. But I was listening to this Pierce Morgan interview her, and I found out that I had been wrong. She didn't say that, which is interesting because I was like, whoa, if she had said it, my explanation would be, you'd think it would be, oh, we've got one that's woke, right? Or somebody woke up, or she's trying to think for herself. But no, I didn't. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. And the reason why, not that the odds are that something like that should not happen about once a day, right? At least once. But because they don't allow it to be made known if it does. Individuals like that, maybe Robin Williams or whatever, they just come up missing. Or you think, or they say that this happened or that happened. They usually die in an airplane. For Michael Jackson. Overdose of drugs. Well, it was basically proven on national television that he didn't do that to himself. But nobody cares because all you have to do is ignore it when it comes to the individuals that, like the higher-ups that did it. They got away with it. And they get away with something like that almost every day. Oh, there's the president. Oh, the murderer. Right? The extortioner. The actual race, ist. Well, the imbecile. It's you could go on and on. It's a never-ending thesaurus. But I would then say, if that's what she had said, if she really said what she said, then I would say that it's orchestrated, that there's a reason for what they're doing. And I saw this happening all around. Like they're disclosing, they call it disclosure. All of a sudden we're having disclosure now? Right? Before the one world, because they don't recognize, no one acknowledges that we're about to go into the end of this world and a new world order. I mean, one way or the other, whether you're going into a good new world order or a bad one, we're going into a new world order. This world order is about to crash. Listen, no, it doesn't have to. Of course not. I know some of you financial individuals out there, you economists or whatever, you're like, oh, you're so stupid. You don't realize that it's just paper money. There ain't no money. You can just print more. Yeah. But you see, then they wouldn't have this theatrical spectacle going around that we're about to go broke. See, everything's a lie. Of course, they're really not going broke. We never had any money to start with. Okay, we're not going broke. They want you to think we're going broke. They want you to think that. So therefore, they have to show you the stats. Oh, we're this much in debt. Oh, look at this. The idiots can't decide whether or not to keep the spending, level where it is. Or, we don't know if we should send $50 quadrillion to the terrorists in the Ukraine. And nobody votes on it. It's just they do, right? And we're just voting stuff. And then they tell us that, well, the debt that they claim we have, which is so astronomical we can't even imagine it, that's only like 1/100th of the debt. I mean, all of the individuals in the United States right now, just about all of them, are on Social Security. Either you're old, over 62 or whatever it is, or you're disabled, you're getting some kind of welfare, food stamps, you're getting vouchers for this, that, and you're thinking, look, they're taking care of over half of the people, just printing money out of the air. They could do that. I mean, can you imagine? Let's go back 10 years. Oh, they can't make this go on much longer. Well, they did it. They made it go on another 10 years with thin air. And they can bring some nothing out of nothing if they wanted to, right? If they wanted to bring something out of nothing, well, they couldn't do that. But they could certainly bring another nothing that's been working just fine, keeping us going with this nothing, right? This illusion. That's what everything in this world's an illusion. So, yeah, it's not that, it's got to happen now because it's been so many years from the day that, King Tut cracked his tomb and slithered into his coffin. No, but it will happen because it is destined to happen. Number one, if you don't believe in the Bible, then we don't have much in common. I don't. My conclusions are all based on that. It's all based on it, not because I decided to take a random storybook. I could have used The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland, right? And I started worshiping Alice or something, or the cat, the Cheshire cat. No, that's ridiculous. Well, no, you didn't do that, Dave, but maybe your ancestors did. They've convinced you. Well, my ancestors probably weren't that stupid either. The truth is that we're the stupid ones. We're the ones who have no freaking idea where this book came from. We don't even realize what books are. Today, we've got these things we call books, but they're just trash. They're trash. They didn't have copying machines and digital this and that and storage gigabytes and why they didn't even have books. They had to chisel it into the stone, into the walls of the temples. And only the priests knew how to write. Nobody was able to read or write. Nobody had a Bible. These books weren't novels or advertisement or toilet paper for the outhouse. These were the official inspired documents. Now, all of them, Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian. I mean, he said, well, how could that be? I mean, only the Hebrew is inspired. Why? Who said that? The Hebrews? Well, let me tell you, they weren't the first ones here. And of course, Hebrew is block letter modern. After Christ came to the earth, that language was invented. It's not even old. Okay, that other thing that they claim is Hebrew is pictographs. And all of these ancient languages were confused and divided at the Tower of Babel. So whatever was before the Tower of Babel, it certainly doesn't say it was Hebrew. But Hebrew is only one half or one jingle jaggle jiggle of the mixing and the confusing of the languages. But the pictographs are not the original because we spoke telepathically, but we put these pictures in these forms. But the holy writing, the hieroglyph writing, is on the Egyptian Great Pyramid. It was a priestly language because it was the ancient original language. And that's why that's the first priesthood. Because before the flood, they had the true priesthood. And I mean, really the true. I mean, right down to the point where the man who is the high priest was running it. And it was Jesus. In our Bible, he's called Enoch. He was perfect. He never died. Or he was taken. He was not. He never experienced death. Whether or not he could have died or whatever, it doesn't say. But Enoch, in the book of Enoch, says he would be the Messiah. And he was the one who went unto the divine Father, was given immortality, granted it, but they had a plan there. And he was told, look, son, all of your brothers and sisters are in this world of rebirth, and they're all being deceived and controlled. And it's son, please don't look down. It's bad, you know. You were down there when you were reigning and giving people love, and you know, people were happy, and you gave them schools and roads, and you made libraries, and by example you led the world. And they loved you, so much so that on the day that you was taken up, I had to take 144,000 with you because they wouldn't let you go. They loved you with all their heart. They said, we will stand with you forever. We are your eternal blood brothers. And indeed we were. All of us, the 144,000, we went straight up into the city of Enoch that will also one day come back down from heaven as you've seen it go into heaven. We all saw it, just as we were all baptized into Moses and stood there and, you know, saw Mount Sinai and that covenant as well. Because our fathers were baptized into the sea. And we were Corinthians. How do we do that? Well, because we've been reincarnated. We were all there. But I would have said that she's faking it, that it's a theatrical spectacle. Because I know and I believe that what the people, the fools, believe they know is a lot of guessing. They've proven that. We absolutely have proven that. Oh, Newtonian physics is all there is. It's so amazing. It's presupposing that matter exists. Okay, well, then we get another model that comes along and says, well, no, it's relative. Light bends and warps, and time, even time is relative. Matter is relative. And you know, really, the particles, the physical world didn't even exist. There's no physical attributes of it whatsoever. It's only energy, pure light. So the model that they thought and believed in, because that's all they knew, turned out to be wrong. And we adopted the theory of relativity, and people began to say, now we know everything. But then they started, you know, they were building these ships, and they were doing it all in secret. They built a space station out by the moon, and they got underground, under the water space stations. They got space stations at the South Pole and the North Pole. And they got huge ships, and they've been hiding this from us. They brought them over, all their expertise from Germany, and got all the other expertisers, remember, who are these people? How are they so smart, or where did they come up with this information? Well, they just worked so hard, Dave. Or just smart, or geniuses. No, actually, they've been down in a basement doing the hokey pokey, you know what I mean? Abracadabra, kazam, magic, and consulting the devil. And he gave them instructions of how to build these machines because they plan on having a war with Jesus. Of course, they cannot win. They're just, you know, long shot in the dark, but they're going to, you know, probably try to get away or something, you know. I think they're also working on the AI because they want to be downloaded, that Yahweh himself wants to experience what it's like to be a human and have sex and murder every living soul. Nothing would make him happier. Nothing. Of course, his little plan will not succeed. But the thing about it is that these people that are doing this in the world today they believe in what they're saying. Okay, try to imagine how they feel. Do they feel like, oh, ooh, I hate these other people and I just love my little family. I love my family. I'd die for my family, but I hate these other people. And let's come up with some plan for thousands of years on end. Like slowly edging our way to this plan, right? Generations come and die, and yonder years, these poor people probably were murdered and tortured on the battlefields. Only recently have they had luxurious lives up in the castle with donning the furs and the linens and all of that, and the costly jewels. But it's like, what, it was all worth it, right? Because they knew they were going to get reincarnated. They knew that much, and they were told, like, by their rabbi a long, long time ago, now, son, if you will just give your life, next life might be a little better, and then after that, 3 or 4 more reincarnations, and we'll have them. And then we'll capture their souls in a bronze vase. We'll put a cork in it. And we'll find some way in the future how to suck all their existence out of it. We'll do something. But they believe. See, they probably wouldn't believe that. They probably believe that they're creating a utopia. You know, in the French Revolution, it ended up being a revolution for good because we got the Constitution in France and America of liberty and justice for all. And around the world, we got these constitutions. And there's nothing was wrong with those constitutions. It literally says you shall make no law. We're free. That will restrict me from my freedom. You'll make no law. In other words, you can't make a law because every law that you make restricts my freedom. So that's what it's saying. You cannot make a law. That's what the Constitution says. And here they are legislating it up the, yin-yang. And how'd they get to do that? How'd they manage that? Well, you see, there was a stipulation that in your house you could make rules. Not in the country, but in the house, in your own house, you could make rules. Oh, then they just applied that to the whole village, the family. And the village had, a mayor. And they elected. They said, okay, well, you could do that if you want. Traditionally, we have elections and voting booths and a big Capitol building for the county, right? And then for the state. Well, that's not anything at all. It had nothing to do with the Constitution, the country. I don't know what happened where, in the Constitution, in these other, various writings that they came up with, they did say that these various states could join together in a union. Well, that doesn't really mean we're supposed to have states. It means you have states. You already have them. Oh my, that's why we're doing this, to make liberty and to have unity. So there are no states. To make a unity out of the states, we're all going to adopt the Constitution, which means we will make no laws. Again, that does not mean that I couldn't have a law in my house if we all voted on, if my wife could, well, I don't have a wife, but if I did and I made a law and she didn't object to it too much, and try to leave, and we all kind of agreed to the law, then we could do that if we wanted to. The Constitution didn't restrict someone from making his own government. The Constitution government has no laws, other than you will have no laws. And, there are various amendments and things like this to the Bill of Rights and all of this that we got later. But not all of the laws, the thousands and thousands of legislation laws that they've come up with, and new departments. And then, of course, the federal government is not the same as the Federal Reserve, of course. And so we think that we're run by voting. They haven't had voting for a long, long time. It's always been rigged. First of all, there's two parties, and you only get to vote for one of the parties, and the parties are not constitutionalists. And they're all ignorant. We've all fallen. We have no knowledge. That's why I say we're the fools. We're the fools now because we think that these ancient priests made it up. But what they did is they couldn't write it in plain English because English didn't exist, nor could they even write it in the original language because it had been confused, people through division and hate and rebellion and lack of faith, lack of love. They came to a place where they were divided, they were warring, they were killing one another, and they were making each other slaves. And we degraded and we burned the knowledge because we didn't understand it. It's like the swine that tramples the pearl under its foot. We didn't know what all this knowledge was, and we didn't understand that what the right of the king was. It was honoring our father Adam. It was an administration of natural law, that the eldest is the wisest. And, there's just so much that we have no clue now. We despise the royalty. The royalty is scriptural. That's from Father Adam all the way down. But then you get to Plato and they think, oh, well, we're going to follow wisdom. Well, you can't just follow wisdom. Sophia's great, but she needs to be in balance with justice and with power and with her husband. And so they just abandoned, half of the truth. So everybody had a piece of the truth, but nobody really knew what to do with their piece, and nobody knew where these pieces came from. And sometime down the road, a few hundred years after Christ, a bunch of people started wondering, I wonder if we even should be holding on to these pieces. That might be the problem. We're trying to hang on to these pieces. The problem isn't that we don't understand these pieces and that we think we're wise in our own sides and that we've rebelled and wandered and burned the books. Now we don't even understand them. We don't have a priesthood because we killed all the prophets. And so we have no idea what this is. Some of the people said we need to go back to the original ways. Okay, but others thought, no, maybe it's the original ways that got us here. And they really did believe that. Now, how could you believe that? Well, why not? Everybody's able to believe what they want. The problem is that they didn't believe it because they examined it from the sincerity of a place of wanting to truly know. Any human being who is not willing to be lied to, you say, well, that's a moral quality that few have, Dave. No, that should be it's like saying, do you want to live? Yeah. Why? I mean, who would say no? And especially if you were in paradise. It's just obvious that you'd want to know the truth. You can't live in darkness all the time. You want to go outside and see the flowers grow. I mean, don't tell me that, now some people don't agree, Dave. right? 6 out of 8 people say, survey says, no, bull crap. Everybody's the same, essentially. We all want to be happy, and we all want to live and get along. It's a delusion, all this other stuff. Even the law is a delusion. Because you can't make a law that says don't murder. If you're a murderer, what do you care about a law for? That doesn't stop murder. We still got laws today, and we got lots more murder than you could ever imagine. But what we need is to be happy and follow the natural law. Obey your father, because when you were born, you couldn't even dress yourself. Right? Your mother fed you from her breast and nurtured you and taught you how to walk and talk and answered all your stupid questions and watched over you and rocked you to sleep every night. Of course you're going to sit and listen. This is natural law. Yeah, boys are boys and girls are girls. But you see, we're so stupid we can't understand that. But now what does that mean? That means we've decided, or these people, not me. Oh, don't get me mixed up with them. But these people, these professors, those with a PhD, and even those who are so amazing they didn't even need a PhD. They're just billionaires and they just know everything. Well, they say, I think this concept about this bearded deity floating in yonder heavens, ruling over all of us, made up all these laws, and we're not supposed to have sex, and we're not supposed to eat, anything we want, to just do whatever we want. And they're so ignorant, they think that our Heavenly Father was trying to restrict them from something. That we weren't His own heir. That we didn't have the power of all the universe. But they don't know that. So, and I don't think they want that. They don't want the universe. Control, self-control, right? Dignity, love. They don't want responsibility. What they want to do is throw their candy everywhere, squirt ketchup all over the kitchen, rip off their bib, and scream bloody murder until they pass out, until they get their way. I want cookies, Mama. Okay. Well, if Mama gave you cookies, you'd get sick. But if you just ate cookies all the time, that's what you want to do. You want to suspend the laws of the universe, which have nothing to do with what's fair. It's just what is, and you can't change it. It's reality. Up is going to stay up as opposed to being down, and it will always be that way. Without that, we have nothing. We don't even have existence. And so there are these highest principles that every other principle is combined with. You're too puny in your little mind to understand this, so you do not know why the answer is that we must be patient and have love and allow for things to be worked out in its own due time. And have faith that this principle of the Divine One, the love, because He is love, and our divine, wise Heavenly Mother, in their similitude of perfection, they sustain all things by their word. And they got the word, and they spoke the word from that inner sanctuary within them that is being. And friends, being exists by virtue of itself. There is no why. Have you ever asked yourself, why is there not a being? How could it possibly be that nothing could be? Then I couldn't even have said that sentence. Reality you don't ask, why do I like candy? You don't say, why is the sky blue? I mean, there's a reason, I suppose. But you enjoy the sky being blue and you see the grass is green. I mean, I suppose if you got a little older, you might wonder what was the reason for that. But a scientist today wouldn't know. They don't know that there's a layers of colors from intensity, from cold to hot, and from things that are hotter, it's going to be redder, and things that are in the middle are going to be like green, right? On the ground, and above that's going to be blue. And so, yeah, there is a reason. But if you know the real reason, you never know the reason because there's always something behind it. Like, well, okay, so you're saying that the universe, the coloring arrangement, isn't just random, but that hot things or higher vibrations are red and more deep vibration would be blue. So there's a reason. But the question is, again, why? Why do you put the red at the top? Well, perhaps the red isn't even something you see as much as it is something that gives you a feeling as well. So I can't tell you why it red, if I'm just using the word red in English, why is red hot or associated with that? Maybe there's a lot of things in the world like fire that's hot and stuff like that, or a stove, you get it real hot and it turns red. Fire is red. Maybe that's why. But I don't think it's just that fire is red. It's that hot is a word like up or down. It has a distinct meaning. It's just that I don't think humans are even aware enough to understand, because especially because of our language being confused and stuff, our words don't really speak to us. We have to memorize a bunch of letters and put them together and make up a word for that. So we really can't communicate very well. We misunderstand each other. The original language was pictograph because it was our thought. We saw a picture in our mind and it was translated into your mind through pictures. You knew exactly what I was saying. You couldn't lie. You cannot lie because all are exposed in the light. But when we get there, it'll also be known when we get into the light what was done in the dark. You got one chance to go through the classroom, or you maybe have 2, 3, 400,000 million, but eventually you're going to get there. And then everything will be transparent. And there is no judgment because we all had to get there. You fell down, you were walking and you fell down. You were like, what, 5 when you tried to learn to walk? Well, maybe 2. And you kept falling down. Oh, how shameful. No, but you kept getting back up. So the world today, we don't really understand much. We don't know where language came from. We don't know that it's a communication into this material realm from the inner sanctum, from the Lord. It's all inspired. Even novels today are all inspired. But it would be the job of one of the greatest priests that ever lived to decipher the whole thing. Because the entire world is like a Urim and a Thummim. But you see, I'm not concerned with all of these, it's like the Upanishads, right? They were not the original scripture. They were written after the original scripture. Kind of like we've got the Torah as the scripture according to the Judeans. And then we got the prophets, and they don't really like the prophets because the prophets didn't, exactly give them credit for a lot of things. So some people say, well, the Torah is more divine, more sacred than the prophets. And then there's the writings, and they're not even as sacred as the prophets. Well, all of it. I believe in all of it. I believe in the Torah, which is veiled. We can't even comprehend it. Most people. And the prophets, which are a little more unveiled, some criticism and some honesty coming in about what you were supposed to do with what you knew already. So it's not like we're going to make up a new law. It's just, here's what you didn't do. You didn't follow the law of love. It's never changed. Okay, what you did is you started worshiping a golden calf and you began to make sacrifices to your demons. Okay, you got up and you all had a good time. And your hearts turned back into Egypt. So the prophets reminded them of the truth that they left. And then the writings were just to philosophize. Again, it's not the actual elemental structure of the truth, it's the outer fluff. But so wait a minute now, is the law, the Torah, the structure, the inner structure and the workings? Well, it is for the material world. These laws hold up all things by the word of their power. And the one who possesses the power to speak that word is the one who exercises the power. And so in the material realm, there is these laws that you read, that you see with your material eyes, because they are axioms like physics. They control, these laws control the universe that you live in. The only one thing you don't know when you look at that is that the laws that are making, or the axioms that make up that world, are not really making up a world. You got mesmerized and you didn't interpret some of the words you were using properly. And you thought the world that it was making was the real world. It never said that. Because real life, living reality, doesn't ever die. And yet in this world, you got to kill. So it doesn't exist. It's just a temporary classroom. And that's why in that Old Testament, you have crowns and robes and this kind of thing, benchmarkers, brownie points. You get a staff if you're ruling, right? Or something. Because you don't just go into that world thinking this is the way it is forever, but you're trying to go to school to educate yourself so that you can accomplish something that, of course, you never accomplish. You get after all the schooling, you get to the end of the curriculum, and they hand you a black robe. It's what is that? Shouldn't you have a white robe where you learned all that stuff and now you know something, and you should be pure and white and purified and bright and shiny? But no, they give you a white shirt, it's beautiful, but then they cloak it with the black robe. Because everything you learned in this world, everything you learned in this earth, based on those axioms and the law of Moses, was creating a world of duality, of rights and wrongs and ups and downs and fears, monsters and ferocious animals, carnivores that eat each other. It's not sustainable. And the resources are not infinite. It's a material world. Dust you are, and dust you shall return. So, okay, fine. It's the law of this world, but we're no part of this world. It truly is the law of this world. But you see, then you get to the new covenant and you get another law, which was not a new law, as John says, but an old one that you had from the beginning. What was that? Not the Torah, no. But from the beginning, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Divine One, and the Word was the Divine One. And all things came into existence through Him. So nothing existed in the beginning. Before the beginning, actually, before it all existed. So this was the original, you might say. In Greek, you would translate that into English as original, or the real one, the original, the prototype. This is the truth. Jesus said, Moses brought the law, but I bring the truth. They're not the same thing. The law in this world is only temporarily pertinent. It is a classroom, and we're trying to get our crowns and our robes, but we're not trying to get black robes. And that's what happens when you do not receive the love of the truth that you might be saved. It's just a free gift. Oh, there's no way out of this world if you try to do it with works. There's no way beyond it. And the thing of it is most people don't want to get out of this world. I mean, they say they do. They want a paradise, and they want happiness, but they don't want to have. They always turn to the pleasure, which brings pain. They get addicted. They get deceived and beguiled, and they always get to a point where they just would rather live in this hellhole because they don't know what it would be like to live in a wonderful world where everyone had peace and every man lived under his own vine and had his own fig tree. They just wouldn't even, they would think that's some kind of fairy tale, couldn't possibly exist. They'd rather have the ups and downs, I mean, great pleasures, and then, pain. They'd go through hell. They'd be skinned alive just so they could have sex with that woman the next day. A lot of people would. They want to drink. They enjoy it, even if they get sick the next day. So they choose it. But the deal is that everybody's going to choose it at first because you've got to learn. The baby sticks his hand in a dangerous place and you say, no, 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 you see, and the baby just keeps giggling, laughing, and doesn't listen, and boom, smack. Right? It hurts. And then the baby's like, oh, okay. And then it doesn't really, wasn't quite enough, right? He didn't quite hear it. So he gets another situation and another and another. And eventually he starts going, wait a minute. I better start listening. You put your hand in the fire and eventually it's going to burn so bad you're going to pull it out. And so eventually, in their own due time, everybody will learn. But right now in the world that we are living in, it was destined that we go it by faith, not by sight. Because what we're trying to do is, in this last classroom, this last judgment, in the final test, is to see if we know what is right and wrong, what is good and what is evil within our own self. We don't need to be told, right? Even if the whole world's running around acting like they're crazy, which they're not. Most people are sitting around in their beds with a bottle of whiskey, just grinding their fingernails down to this nub, scared out of their mind. They're not out rioting and yelling and screaming. They're probably coiled up in a fetal position because they're so scared they don't want to leave the house. Most people don't like what's going on. They hate it. They're scared. They're having panic attacks. They don't like it. It's these actors that are running around doing all this stuff, putting it on the television night and day, and making you think the whole world's crazy. Well, the whole world's crazy because we let them do this. And who are they? Well, those are the individuals that are newbies, right? They're newbies. And they're not the firstborn, see? And in their immaturity, and they got angry, they got jealous, and they murdered their brother. So now, what happens to them? Well, our loving Heavenly Father just banishes them from the others, shuns them, said, that's wrong. You've got to know that's wrong. I can't let this evil in with my other kids. So you go out there and I'm going to give you some time to think about it. Go into your room, close the door, and you think about it. And when you come back and tell me you're sorry, then we'll forget about it. Because the Lord forgives 70 times 7. And so that's what happened. I mean, Cain was sent to the land of Nod as a fugitive. And he only had to stay there for 7 times. But the Lord is good. The Lord is righteous. But those who are ready shall enter into the door. But for those who procrastinate, the door will be shut. And there'll be weeping and gnashing outside. But the world that we live in today They believe that they have found the key. So we go back to the revolution of the French Revolution, and what were they doing? Well, some of them were making a constitution here in America, and others were causing riots in the streets and burning Bibles. They wanted freedom, but they wanted more. They wanted liberty and liberalism. They didn't want to be under law, not because they wanted to follow love, but they didn't want to be under love either. They didn't want to be under any restrictions. They wanted to eat pizza all night long and not get sick. They wanted to just be able to murder and pillage and get away with it. See, I get to do what I want. And I can even do this. I can even become king over you and do everything I want and tell you that you can't do what you want. That's how twisted it was. Now you can imagine how the Lord felt about that. And so these individuals now really believe. You see these movies where there's like flowers and butterflies flying everywhere and rainbow colors. Well, that's their symbol. They believe they're going to create a world utopia where everybody can have sex with anybody they want, little children, right? And yeah, you don't have to work anymore because they're going to make technology. They're going to make the world better. And some AI will run everything, and machines will just make all the food. They won't even have to eat real food. They won't have to have a real world because they're going to just lay in some sort of bed with an oxygen mask, right? Because their limbs are all atrophied, and they're going to be putting this Neuralink in their head, and they're going to go to Mars, hey, or they'll go somewhere else. They'll do whatever they want, right? 3D digital holographic sex. And they'll keep pushing that little red button just like that old mouse. There's a little electrode hooked up to his brain, and the other end of that wire goes to this little red button. It's hooked up to his pleasure center. And the little mouse goes there and pushes the button, and he gets pleasure, and he just keeps pushing the button and pushing the button. Oh, it feels so good. Oh, it feels so good. You come back in an hour, the veterinarian or whatever, and there's this mouse, laying belly up, completely gone. Fried his brains. He couldn't stop. See, the Lord didn't make crack cocaine. Humans did. The Lord didn't make things that would kill you like that. The Lord made herbs to heal you. The Lord didn't make fentanyl or whatever that is, fentanyl, or meth or something like this you make with a bottle of hairspray, or I don't know how they make it. I've heard something about hairspray, but these are chemicals. They will kill you, and they give you a pleasure that you cannot. It's like a prison. You can't. It's not nobody. If you've ever seen somebody flipping around on the street, they're dying, their body's rotting off from the bones, and you wonder, why are they doing it if they're not enjoying it? I mean, why, if it's that bad, what are they doing it for? Well, it ain't. They don't care about the body. They don't care about life. They don't care about you, me, them, anybody. Only the pleasure. Now, maybe that's an affliction, I should say, where you get to the point where you're so numb, like physically, I suppose there could be a way that could happen. You could be numb and somewhere and you wouldn't feel something on your skin. Well, maybe they're numb in their mind to the point because they become reprobate. They don't even remember what it was like to be happy. All they can think about is this pleasure. And I think that the Lady Gagas of the world and the certain individuals that Epstein and whoever else you want to throw in the pot, Biden and all the rest, I think they sold their soul willingly. But how willingly, we don't know. Like whether they did it under some kind of mental duress or they had fallen into some sort of trap and they're poisoned in their mind somehow and they can't help it. I don't know. The Lord knows, and I'm willing to trust the Lord on that. But what I do know is He won't let these evil, wicked people harm us much longer. He never would have let them take anything important away. We're living in this illusion by our own choice. We're also in a delusion. But there are layers to this delusion. And in our side of the delusion, we are simply aware that we're progressing out of the delusion. We're aware that it's a delusion, but we're also aware that it takes a little time when training to educate and practice faith in order that we might be able to truly come to the place of knowing. The other side has completely, they didn't just fall down. They don't just make mistakes. They've literally decided to turn around and walk the other way. And I believe they've chosen that path under the delusion that the path we're on, they think, well, it didn't accomplish anything. Look at the churches killed each other and they were all bad. Well, of course, that's what they're telling them. That is not the truth. The church Christians didn't do any of these bad things. They martyred all the Christians before they even became a Christendom or Christianity. Right? There were Christians, but for maybe 100 years or so, but they started murdering them, all of them. By the time they murdered them and replaced them with their little family members and usurped and took out the plain and precious things of the gospel and twisted and made monsters out of it, turned it upside down and made it apostatized and went back to the law again and damnation and hell and unforgiveness. And again, the law all the way along. I mean, cutting up the world, dividing it up for a price under the bankers, which is unscriptural, which is not according to love. Jesus told us not to charge interest and to just give. And if somebody asks for our coat, we give them our inner garment. And if someone slaps us, we should turn the other cheek. Love one another and forgive one another. How many times, Jesus? 70 times 7. A perfect cycle, a weekly cycle with a Sabbath and then a Jubilee. Perfect, complete forgiveness. Over and over and over until the person has got it right. You got to keep forgiving people because they're going to keep making mistakes until they're where they need to be. Mother needs to keep watching over their children and loving them. They don't just abandon them the first time that the kids don't know how to do something yet. We have to learn by the things that we suffer. So it was the ancient ones that were following not novels, movies, and theories by some, what we call him, atheistic rationalist who wrote the Communist Manifesto, and individuals like Nietzsche that thought that we don't need any deity. Deity is dead. He didn't understand that it wasn't some kind of fairy tale. We weren't worshiping a bearded man in the sky. It never had anything to do with that. They burned the manuscripts. They lost the ancient teachings. They lost the principles. And they were wandering around in darkness like spoiled, rotten children, saying there is no deity. But the only reason that the problems are in the world isn't because of Christianity. It's because of the individuals who detested Jesus and murdered him and said, may his blood be upon us and our children. They knew exactly what they were doing. They hated him. They made a choice. When Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus, he did it with a kiss. And he went unto his own place, the Bible says. So, yeah, I was watching that Roseanne, and she didn't actually say what we thought she said. It was supposed to have been taken sarcastically. She was saying something the opposite. She was saying that's what everyone else is saying, and it's so hypocritical. It's as bad as saying that Trump lost the election, because she believes that Trump absolutely won the election. So, I don't know. I guess I believe that. But then I said, well, if it was that, it's just so opportunistic. It's just so, it's like one of those things that happen and you wonder, like little coinky dinks that you just can't get over, that coincide with other events, coincidental events that are just so like each other. They just keep happening and they just make you wonder if something's not making it. It's like destiny, or it was just meant to be, or somebody's orchestrating the whole thing. Oh, maybe that's it. Because I just found out that Mel Gibson, in his movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, which I thought was a wonderful movie. I mean, it's about Jesus and everything. And Mel's supposed to be a Christian. And he's been on television saying he doesn't like the Bavarians and stuff. So I kind of thought he was one of the good guys. Like, okay, so there's some good people out there, even in positions of power in Hollywood or whatever. But see, they don't like him. They don't like him. Oh, no. And I thought, wait a minute. This guy that says good things, and it's all over the news about how he said these things and then was banned from Hollywood. He didn't make any more movies after that. But wait a minute. Didn't The Last Temptation of Christ, wasn't that the largest movie of all time? I guess, and except for recently the movie Avatar, I think, outdid it. And there might have been one since then I haven't heard about. But The Last Temptation of Christ, I mean, he made billions of dollars. Now, do you think that if he was so hated that he'd make one of the biggest movies of all time, and that they'd let him make a movie about Jesus? Well, it turns out that the movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, has a scene in it where there's this woman that looks like a Mary figure with a kind of a nun black uh, head covering and a black robe. And she's holding this what looks like a baby, I guess, except for it's more like a little troll. It's got a hairy back, a curly lip. Why did Mel Gibson, who produced and directed and everything else this movie, why did he put in the movie the birth of Satan at the very day that Jesus died on the cross? It's not in the Bible, and there's something very eerie about that. The woman, I say woman, that was dressed in this black kind of nun gown really was kind of a male, female, androgynous type figure. This is what I was reading, and I looked at her again, and I thought, yeah, it kind of does look like a man's hand and some manly features. And they were saying that it's basically an androgynous transgender with this freak of a monster child, Satan. Well, I suppose there could be some explanation for it, some symbology that wouldn't be as crazy as what I'm thinking. But it sounds to me like Mel was dabbling with the Bible there and putting in his own 2 cents. And it seems like at the death of Jesus was born Satan. And it was, and the little snarl, the little curled up lip, like it was like devious child, like, ha ha ha, ha, I've got him. And I wonder, do they think they got us? So Roseanne Barr's going around saying that, we'll just say, saying something that's very, very true that we're not allowed to say, or partly true, or has something meritorious about it, but something we're never allowed to speak about. And she says she's Jewish, and she's saying this. I even got taken down off TikTok. I had a video about it. I was probably going to put it up on YouTube, but thank goodness I didn't. But they took it down on TikTok. And I played a clip of her saying this little thing. Well, I believe that was orchestrated. There's disclosure going on right now. Here's what she said on Piers Morgan. She said that all of these individuals that live south of Lebanon, they're not all the same. There's good ones and bad ones. And the bad ones are very evil. And she hates them and blah, blah, blah. And she's telling the truth about what they're doing. But she's trying to tell you that there's another group of these guys that are the good guys. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that anyone who was steeped in that religion and have been conscious of who their people are, and in these synagogue I don't believe that they haven't been aware for a long, long time of what they were doing. And if you go back to World War II and even up there in Russia with Stalin, they got rid of a bunch of these people. I think they were getting rid of the good ones. I don't think there are anymore. I think the only individuals that run the world, these individuals, I think they're all in on it. Now, there could be some person out there that doesn't agree with it or whatever, but they're not famous. They don't have a voice anyway, so what? But to put that in our minds and try to get us to believe that some of these guys are good. You know how I've been saying there's always both sides. You've got Ben Shapiro that plays the conservative side, right? And then you've got a bunch of others that play the liberal, like Adam Schiff and stuff. Well, I've always said they're playing, and I still believe they're playing. So why are they telling us so much truth? Man, I've been listening to a few of Tucker Carlson's videos on Twitter or whatever, and he's just exposing the whole thing. The whole dang thing. Well, there's only one problem. Really think about it. They're getting ready for, this is disclosure, and they're getting ready to say, all these guys are the bad guys. And they're all going to get punished or go off some island or whatever. We're going to bring in a one world government. But now the good ones, they have no record of doing anything wrong. That's why you'll never find anything on Trump, because they have a way to keep the records expunged. They're not going to have written somewhere in a book or a courthouse records or anywhere is it going to be found any proof that Donald Trump did anything wrong ever. And if they find out that Biden has done wrong, it'll only be after a long theatrical spectacle where they have used, because he is one of these individuals playing the bad guy in this movie. And they're going to carry this movie down to the finish where the bad guy finally gets found out, and he goes to the guillotine. And we all cheer. And then we think there's justice and a happy ending. But guess what? The bad guys were playing both sides. And they got you to be so grateful that they got rid of their own brother, which they never really did. It's going to be an illusion. They'll all go off to some party on Epstein Island. But this little movie that they play for us, we're going to watch it. And some of us might even think we went to Mars, after we get done with that movie in 3D. But it's all going to be an illusion. And of course, by that time, you'll probably be trapped in their computer anyway, so it won't make any difference. But I'm telling you guys, I guarantee it. Don't trust any of them. Don't think that just because they're going to start disclosing everything And maybe somebody will go to jail. It'll be these little low-level grunts that go to jail. It ain't going to be, it'll be the pawns. It'll be all these Uncle Toms that'll probably get the that guilt on them, and it's almost kind of like what happened when Jesus came and he took the sins of the world upon himself. Well, the Antichrist is probably going to kill a bunch of people and redeem his own people in their blood. That's actually what Yahweh says he's going to do. Of course, the problem with that is he doesn't realize that the Antichrist himself is the goat for Azazel, and he will be punished with all of the sin and the pain and the affliction that he put upon us. The karma will come back on him, and he will be sent, him and his demons, into the lake of fire that was prepared for the devil and his demons from the founding of the world. So, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys have a really wonderful evening. Do not be deceived, friends. Our only hope is Jesus and our integrity and our faith. May the Lord bless you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.